The explorations made by Europeans from the late 15th century shaped the international trade, culture, and religion we know today. Plus, they gave us the holiday of Christopher Columbus. Well, I mean, we don't get off school, but you know what I mean. But we're not here to talk about Columbus or sing that jig song. We're here to talk about Portugal. Portugal was one of the earliest countries to broach ships to unknown lands, pushed by the Ottoman Turks who were rapidly gaining ground in Eastern Europe and cutting off trade from Asia. Prince Henry of Portugal was a great sponsor of exploration, as he knew it had the ability to expand his small nation's power in Catholicism and trade. Henry established the School of Sagres in southwestern Portugal, bringing in mathematicians, astrologists, cartographers, and instrument makers to teach the art of sailing. Soon after, ships were being sent south along the western coast of Africa in search of gold. As ships crept down the coast, slaves were being shipped back to Portugal and sold to wealthy Europeans. In 1471, Portuguese explorers discovered a new source of gold along the southern coast of the hump of western Africa. To facilitate the trade of this gold, along with ivory, slaves were bartered to local merchants. The region of golden trade would thereon be called the Golden Coast by Europeans.
In 1488, Bartholomew Diaz sailed through the South Atlantic all the way down to the Cape of Good Hope. Westerly winds assisted him all the way down. However, it wasn't all easy sailing, as he had to turn back in fear of an uprising from his crew. Just after Diaz returned to Lisbon, Portugal, Pope Alexander VI passed the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. Christopher Columbus's discoveries had reached the Spanish rulers Isabella and Ferdinand, who used Pope Alexander VI for their claims to inhibit the Portuguese. The Treaty of Tordesillas created a line down the Atlantic Ocean through Brazil, stating that everything to the east of the line was given to Portugal to explore and everything to the west was given to Spain. Later, in 1497, a man named Vasco da Gama, funded by King Manuel of Portugal, picked up where Diaz left off and sailed down to the Cape of Good Hope. From there, he rounded the Cape and encountered many Muslim-controlled ports along East Africa's coast. He then crossed the Arabian Sea and reached a southwestern coastal Indian port called Calicut. There, he unfortunately found no Christians, but was compensated by the plentiful amount of spices Calicut had. And on his voyage back to Portugal, he filled his ships with ginger and cinnamon.
Pedro Alvarez Cabal was sent by King Manuel of Portugal to expand on Vasco da Gama's work of exploring India. In order to avoid the waters of the Gulf of Guinea, which had been known to provide no wind for sailing, he set course southwest. However, this route ended up taking him to Brazil in 1500.
In 1509, a Portuguese armada defeated a Turkish and Indian fleet of ships. Alfonso de Albuquerque in 1510 traveled to Goa, and due to evident need for a port there, he would set up a port. It would not be easy, but he and his men were able to take over Goa after a couple of battles. He would then go to Malacca, where they would crush the Arabic population through many bloody battles, and Malacca would then give them access to the islands called the Spice Islands. Portugal would then send more expeditions to go to China and the Spice Islands. Here they would sign a treaty with the local government so that Portugal could export cloves to Europe. Within a few years, the Portuguese had complete control of the spice market. In short, they were a beast. The reason for their success is due to masterful control of guns and ships. They may not have had the men that other countries had, but they sure did have the heart. Due to the Portuguese size, they did not have the means or the population to colonize Asia, and they remained limited, only having ports along the coast of China and India. This is one of the factors that would lead to the collapse of Portugal. Portugal would collapse, however, after the colonial war in 1961-1974, because it took many of their resources and was very unpopular throughout the country. Also, Spain was becoming a bigger and bigger force, and Portugal, being significantly smaller, would lead to the Portuguese' demise.